my name is Swaggy, and we are back with another question time. You guys seem to like the last one, and I do like hearing from you guys because it makes me feel a little smarter about myself. I'm just fucking around. I am dumb as bricks, as evidenced by the fact that I agree with a lot of the answers you guys gave in today's question thread. But today, I wanted to know what cards in Vanguard that you just hate seeing. We all know the usual subjects like the over trigger and double critical triggers, but I want to know what card specifically triggers your flight or fight response the moment it hits the board. To me, the answer has to be Rosarium Fairy. My partner loves to play Leonor, and they love it so much that I can no longer stand the sight of this green elf fairy fuck. She's incredible early game making the plant tokens, and her power late game is crazy. I made the Leonor short, you can see it there. And they made a second one, so you can have more copies of her at any given time you want. So, let's see what you guys came up with, and we're gonna start with the people on Twitter because I asked you to follow me and some of you did, and I got 2 responses, and that's good enough for me. Speaking of great ones I do not like, Frost Lantern says, only one correct answer to this, I'm afraid. If you're not familiar with it, if you're an EN player just getting set 9, you are going to be familiar with it. On paper she doesn't read too crazy, but she's actually the best card in the whole fucking toys deck. On the first bunny on board, it's fine. On the second one, it's a little much. But once I see my opponent filter like 9 cards out of their deck with this card, I just want to hop to the next table after I get crit into fronted by toys. Tescarophobia says, as a Nanaclear enjoyer, crying emoji, Elementaria Sectitude. I imagine this sucks a lot more for you as a Nanaclear player because right now that deck does not have a lot going for it. But I do agree, as someone who loves stride decks and loves Drajul Dignis, probably some Stockholm Syndrome, this card is a pain in the ass. Cards like Elementaria Sanctitude and the other Elementaria become a lot more important now that there's a big guard restrictor in the format as well. I also don't really like that it never really gave us more interesting Elementarias. I mean, stuff like Buddy Fight has like Blue Dragon Shields, I think is what it's called, where it's like a Blitz Order Perfect Guard, but I'm just surprised that nothing in Standard other than Buddy Fight has something like that. I think it'd be cool to have a couple more variations of that, instead of the ones that specifically fuck me when I try to play Hari. Alright, here over on YouTube, Bedrock Addict says that Bracing Angel Ladder is a death sentence to a lot of retire heavy decks. Whenever they use Glass and someone uses Angel, it's basically an auto stop to a lot of abilities. Bracing Angel Ladder is specifically kind of weird this format because not a lot of decks run it. I think maybe Buff Sagra uses this the most often, but I have to imagine it's not very popular now, and if you see it at the X2 table at locals, you're probably pretty pissed off if you're trying to use like Vargas Retire. But at some point, they're gonna give Shiranui a 3rd stride, and you're no longer gonna hate this card, you are gonna wish you had it every hand. Daniel West says Vedrok Dragon. For one, its power during the turn is rather than on attack, meaning you can give it a lot of power, and then when it boosts with Game of the Underworld, it's like 80k on a boosted swing, and it scales at a great speed of 10,000 per turn. NT1ST Gaming, like, is that supposed to be NT First? NT First Gaming says Zamug, the greatest mistake in the game. This card makes surviving the Divine Skill damn near impossible to me. Both of these are kind of the issue with Blangdamire I think a lot of people have, just that they have very big numbers and they do have crit. But you have to understand that if it's not for that, Blangdamire has nothing. The thing about the Vedrok Dragon Zamug column is that when you are against it, you will never have enough to guard and you're just gonna have to kind of play around it the best you can. But if you are the one using it, your opponent always has the over trigger in hand. It happens every fucking game I've ever played this deck, and that's why I no longer own it. Johnny FBA says Stealth Fiend Shenryis and all its present and future iterations. The fact that I get punished for existing in my opponent's vicinity without 2+ rearguards feels a hatred so deep that they could write a Greek myth about me. And Philia makes me sick since it's normally played in Blangdamire, which punishes me for calling rearguards, which I call the counter Philia. This back and forth leads to high roll games where the Vanguard column is permanently unblockable, non-games due to the draw engine regularly being undeniable, and the addition of energy and the loose design on costs makes games practically sameish in practice whether you damage an eye or not. I see a real issue with this, and the solution would be banning or giving the other nations their version of Shenryis. Everyone's got it, or nobody's got it. So I do think the Shenryis clones are super good. There is no denying that they are strong, but I'm not sure if banning it or giving other nations would be the answer to that. I think not every nation having it is the same. I know you from the last one, Johnny FBA, you talked about Zorga, so I know you're just waiting to put this one behind a roaming prison dragon. But I do kind of agree with the unfun nature of Shenryis, where it can feel super sacky if your opponent has it. I do have a specific story about Philia where I did buy into this pretty early on in the manga's printing. So I had someone help me out and get it for me at like $100 for the playset, and I thought, it's fine, it's a promo card, it'll retain value, I know what Shenryis cost is like. And then they reprinted the manga really quick, so I'm the sucker because now Filias go for like $60 of a playset, and well, you know, I don't have $40 because of that. The worst part about that story is that I spent the $100 so I could play Chronojet Dragon at full power, and then I took it to 1 locals and never again. Overall, just a horrible financial investment for me. What were we talking about again? Alright, Filia. Yeah, Shenryis, Filia, probably not good for game, I don't know. What's my biased opinion on this? I don't want Stoichia to have fun because that means Zorga players have something. You know what? Give it to Keter Sanctuary. You know, Surgon is really good, but we've taken it out of Reziel. Yeah, just give him a Shenryis as well. Just do it. It doesn't matter. Who cares? They can draw a million cards at this point. Who cares? Speaking of Keter Sanctuary, Tired's always says, bit of a weird answer, but Nilberis from Reziel lists always make me react like I'm about to voyage up Mount Everest. Reziel specifically is fine. His little lackey that comes around every turn and can be used to play peekaboo with an offensive or defensive trigger while generating card advantage is less fine. This is unfortunately a pretty funny answer to me. When I read this, I was like, oh, that's kind of stupid. Obviously, they need Nilberis so they can force the miracle turn. But then it's not much of a miracle, right, if you can make it happen. And then my second thought was, oh yeah, I guess this fucker does cost me a lot of games. It's one of those cards that is kind of like not threatening in your mind, but once you think about it a lot, you go, oh yeah, this card does like a million things and we don't even care. It's fair even. In WGP Season 2, I was on Orphist, and my opponent was on Reziel, and I saw them stack a card with Nilberis, and I thought, oh, that's gonna be a critical trigger. I'm gonna have to play against the Miracle this turn, and then maybe the turn after I can go for kill. They just stacked like a PG on top that they would took for damage anyways. I have no idea what the plan was there. I guess the only thing that keeps Nilberis fair is Reziel players. Envy Star says, Artisaria's locking sound system. It slows both my Archive and Vase a lot. I did a lot of practice for Vase-Rook Artisaria for this format just because I thought Artisaria would be a lot better than it actually was. And as it turns out, the lock kind of matters, but if you have Mitsugama in the back row, it's not so bad. I could definitely see how it would fuck over Archive a lot though. One of the things that always surprises me is that Artisaria's lock isn't used more. I know it's kind of crazy, because it is good and a lot of the best lists of Artisaria do run it at high quantities, but have you ever tried playing Artisaria at like an event, or like at a multi-round local? It's hard. A lot of cards have ways to remove their own units from the board, so it's hard to lock them down. I'm especially surprised for the set 10 format that this deck is played more, because a lot of the best decks in the room do kinda get stopped by Artisaria. Unless your name is Virgilla, in which case you don't actually care about lock at all. In fact, you will do 5 attacks every turn and the Artisaria will die. It's also kinda funny to me that lock has so much hype moments and aura around it, and it was super hyped up with Artisaria. But Artisaria's best case usage for it right now is to stall the game so that you can play the tokens, which are the cool part about Artisaria. Anyways, let Artisaria lock 2 cards now. I think it'll be fine. Have you seen what Barsagra does? You know what? Let Artisaria delete. I think that would be the next logical step. On your screen right now, you can see both Inverse Melody and Fishy Blue both save Bear Lord. Even though it's nerfed now, it still feels pretty bad when my opponent gets it. And you will feel very bad very often because your opponent will always have it. The thing about card games is that they are kind of mathematical, right? If you run less of a copy of a card, you will see it less. Apparently, the only exception to this rule is Verlord, and if your opponent is playing Levidras, it's Shamnet, who always starts in your opponent's hand, every game. Despite this card being at 1, I don't think I've actually played a game against a Bafsagra player who has missed it ever since. And I'm not talking like, oh, you know, maybe the game ends on turn 4 and they kill me because I'm unprepared. No. I mean like on turn 3, they've already got it set up. I don't think it's ever happened when my opponent doesn't have Verlord on the board already. Maybe I should get better at cutting my opponent's deck or something. Shiranui Holland says the only card that absolutely triggers my fight or flight when I see it hit the table is T-Felt. Too many games against Keter decks have made me truly hate this card. T-Felt's such a fun one. Not to play against, like, you know, to use. The first time I properly used this, I think I was watching a friend play Reziel, and I think I tried it at some point. And I remember thinking, I just get to do this. I remember clicking the Wisdom card and then drawing 2 and then calling 2 T-Felts and going, wow, I just get to do that for free and generate 50 million points of advantage. If T-Felt said already, just call a unit, that would be good. The fact that it can add orders too is just excessive, like why does it do that? And then they gain power too. It gets you advantage, it puts on pressure. This card does literally everything. And every nation has one, you can just play it whenever you want. It's completely fine. It's just held back by the fact that most orders aren't very good. I suspect that maybe you might be seeing Lyrical's version of T-Felt soon, what is it called, Streja? I think you might be seeing Streja a lot more real soon once Cadenza comes out. Just a hunch. Cardfight Vanguard is a trading card game that is meant to bring people joy, but it's unfortunately the source of a lot of my anger, and apparently a lot of you guys' anger as well. In the end, I think this is what we've learned. There are a lot of cards in Cardfight Vanguard that create unfun game states and make us really mad when we see them. Even if those cards fall out of the metagame or are inconsistent, the fact of the matter is sometimes they create unfun board states or play patterns that we just don't enjoy. And those are the cards that you guys play. Not me though, I only play fair cards that should never be banned and should always be buffed. Alright, see you all next time. Bye bye! For me, the answer has to be this breedable twink. That's not going in.